To cope with the fourth industrial revolution, Universitas Terbuka or Yetty has continuously been implementing many more developments and innovations as it efforts to establish the identity as a cyber university by utilizing the most state-of-the-art technologies. The wave of digital disruptions has dramatically changed the views of many sectors. In response to this new and modern world, Yetty adapts and invests in new technologies, including web-based system, where registrations, learning material development, tutorial, and final examinations are conducted online. Online registration system is developed to enable students to register for the courses through various devices, such as computers and smartphones. Students are able to access digital learning materials in PDF and EPUB formats in Yetty Digital Library. Online tutorials are now available for all courses that interactions occurs asynchronously. Yetty also offers synchronous learning that enables real-time communications and collaborations, such as web-based tutoring, e-lecturing, and video conferencing. Yetty has implemented online final examinations conducted at regional offices utilizing VPN technology to connect different regional offices throughout the country to the examination center at the headquarters. In 2018, Yetty made a significant breakthrough by introducing online proctored examinations that allow students to take online examination at remote locations of their choice. Yetty is proud to offer open educational resources which we call Suaka Universitas Terbuka. It offers free online courses available for everyone around the globe at no additional cost. Suaka Universitas Terbuka offers Yetty TV on YouTube, Yetty Radio broadcast through the internet, online enrichment materials, digital library, Guru Pintar Online, a portal for teachers throughout Indonesia which allows them to access various information about teacher trainings, teaching and learning materials to improve their educational experiences. Suaka Universitas Terbuka provides massive open online courses or MOOCs. To enrich student learning experience, Yetty provides Dry Lab and e-seminar. Dry Lab enables students to perform practical work simulations with their computers. Meanwhile, e-seminar is dedicated to students who are required to present the results of their studies or research virtually. To obtain information about Yetty, communication channels are provided for students and general public, including Halo UT is to answer courteously inbound calls from students and public seeking information about Yetty. Digital marketing shares information through social media to connect with current and prospective students. To support e-learning, Yetty provides facilities to the students such as Wi-Fi ID, a free internet service for students using Wi-Fi hotspots in public locations provided by PT Telkom. Microsoft Office 365, free software for students to help them facilitate office documentation, communications, and management tasks. Sentral Layanan UT or Salut is the extension of regional offices to bring services closer to the current students and prospective students. To ensure the quality in every single aspect, Yetty involves both domestic and international accreditation and quality assurance institutions, including the International Organization for Standardization, National Accreditation Board, and the International Council for Distance Education, ICDE.
We know that Universitas Terbuka share this commitment, providing world-class, accessible, higher education, and we're very proud to support you.
That Universitas Terbuka has assumed a leadership role in the field of open education resources or OER.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the virtual Comparative Law Public Lecture Series with our topic, Business Law in Indonesia and Malaysia, presented by Open University of Indonesia. I'm Rina Alsariskiana, your host for today, will guide the webinar this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar will be broadcast via the Zoom platform and UT YouTube. But before we start, I'd like to take a few moments to explain the rules for today's webinar. The first one, all participants must turn off or mute the microphone during the webinar activities. Second, all participants are expected to listen to all presentations from the speakers in an orderly manner. Third, the question and answer session will be conducted in one session. Fourth, participants can ask questions and write them in the chat column or use the raise hand feature. Next, the 3 best questioners will get prizes from the committee. All participants must fill in the attendance list to get an electronic certificate. And last, the link of attendance list will be shared at the end of the webinar session. We hope that you will adhere to these rules and participate fully in the webinar. Thank you for your cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the opening session. We have an exciting panel of speakers lined up for you today, and we hope that you will find their presentation and discussions informative. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's greet the first one, the Dean of Faculty of Law, Social Science, and Political Science, Open University of Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Husni Arifin, SAG MSc PhD. Second, the Head of Law Program, Open University of Indonesia, Mrs. Mega Furi Apriandini, SHMH. Third, our first speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma
Recording in
Sulaiman
progress.
from Open University of Malaysia. And fourth, our second speaker, Professor Dr. Yetty Komalasari Dewi, SHMLE from University of Indonesia. However, she was unable to attend this webinar due to illness, so the speakers was replaced by Mr. Angga Priyanka SHLLM from Indonesia University. And five, our moderator, Mrs. Nadia Nurani Iswarin LLM. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to start this session by inviting everyone to stand up for our opening national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen the opening speech delivered by the Dean of Faculty of Law, Social Science, and Political Science, Open University of Indonesia. Please welcome Mr. Muhammad Husni Arifin, SAG, MSc, PhD.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Excellency Ibu Prof. Dr. Tuan Fatma binti Tuan Sulaiman from Open University of Malaysia. The Honorable Bapak Angga Priyanca, SHLLM from Faculty of Law, University of Indonesia. Excellency all lecturers, students of law program of Universitas Terbuka, and all participants of virtual comparative law public lecture series. First of all, let us deliver our thankful to the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has given us the wonderful opportunity, health, and blessing. And in this morning, we gather to conduct a virtual comparative law public lecture webinar series. I am pleased to welcome you to the webinar series held by the Law Program, Faculty of Law, Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Terbuka, entitled Business Law in Indonesia and Malaysia. As we know, Malaysia and Indonesia have similarities and differences in legal systems. Both countries recognize Islamic law and customary law. However, with regard to Western law, Malaysia adheres to the common law system, while Indonesia is a country that is included in the civil law system. Indonesia follows a civil law system influenced by Dutch colonial law and Roman law principles. It has a written constitution and hierarchical legal structure. Malaysia operates under a dual legal system combining elements of common law derived from the British legal system and Islamic law called Sharia. The country has a written constitution as well. So it became a very interesting thing to become material for joint discussion today, especially with regard to how business law is implemented both in Malaysia and Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to the excellent speakers and all organizing committee who has conducted a great job in hosting this event. Last but not least, I quote the SpaceX and Tesla founder Elon Musk. He said that if you get up in the morning and think the future is going to be better, it is a bright day. Otherwise, it is not. And right now, in this moment, all of us are working on what Elon's said as the bright day. We are working for the bright future of the world. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a great webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Husni Arifin, for the opening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to listen to this speech delivered by the Head of Law Study Program, Open University of Indonesia. Please welcome Mrs. Megafuri Apriyandini, SH.MH.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Rina Elsa-Luciana. Good morning, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual comparative law public lecture series on business law in Indonesia and Malaysia. This event serves as a platform for knowledge exchange and insightful discussions on the legal framework governing business activities in these two countries. As the head of Law Study Program of Universitas Terbuka, I am thrilled to witness the collaboration between renowned academic institutions in Indonesia and Malaysia, fostering mutual understanding and promoting legal expertise in the region. I would like to express my gratitude to the speakers, associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma, binti Tuan Sulaiman, and Mr. Angga Priyanka, SHLM, for sharing their valuable insights with us today. Without further ado, I invite Mrs. Nadia Nurani Sarif to chair the first session. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to our main agenda, that is to hear the keynote speech, and all presentation and discussion will be moderated by our moderator, Mrs. Nadia Nurani Iswarin LLM. Allow me to read her short bio. Currently, Mrs. Nadia is an assistant professor at Open University of Indonesia. She pursued her Master of Law program from Universitas Gadjah Mada and her Bachelor of Law from Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our moderator, Mrs. Nadia Nurani Iswarin LLM.
Thank you, Ms. Rina, for your opening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and distinguished speakers. Welcome to the virtual Comparative Law Public Lecture Series on Business Law in Indonesia and Malaysia. I'm Nadia Nurani Iswarin, and I have the honor of moderating today's session. We have two distinguished speakers today joining us for this event. Today's topic is Business Law in Indonesia and Malaysia, where we will explore the legal aspect of conducting business in these two Southeast Asian countries. We have the privilege of hearing from two esteemed experts in the field. The first is Associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma, binti Tuan Sulaiman from Open University of Malaysia, our colleague from Malaysia. And the second one is Mr. Angga Priyanka, SHLM from Universitas Indonesia, Faculty of Law, Universitas Indonesia. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, let me provide you the rules for the question and answer segment. Participants, all of you can ask their question after the speaker presentation. You can submit your question through the chat feature, and I will read them to the speaker. Or alternatively, you can use the raise hand feature. Then I will invite you to unmute and speak your question in the forum. Okay, now let us turn our attention to our first speaker. She is Associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma binti Tuan Sulaiman. Committee, please, you can provide the curriculum vitae of Dr. Fatma. She is from the Faculty of Business and Management, Open University, Malaysia. Dr. Fatma is currently the Director of Center for Quality Assurance at Open University of Malaysia. So Open University is not only Indonesia, it also in Malaysia too. She obtained her PhD in law from University Sultan Zainal Abidin, Terengganu in 2021. Her research primarily focused on business law, company law, and corporate governance. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fatma as she shares her expertise on business law in Malaysia. Dr. Fatma, your time is 45 minutes and the floor is yours. Please, Dr. Fatma. Dr. Fatma, you can start your presentation. Thank you. Dr. Fatma, are you already? Okay. I'm sorry, we cannot hear your voice. Hello? Yes, we cannot hear your voice, unfortunately. No. But the first session is we can speak here, but
can you hear me now?
Okay. Nice.
Sorry, because just now it's okay. All right,
It's,
thank you very much, Miss Nadia. Thank you very much for being with me today. So I'll share my slides. Okay, from the opening speech, I would like to thank the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Social Sciences and Political Sciences for having this slot so that at least we can share the experience from Malaysia and also Indonesia. I also would like to know more about Indonesian law. Okay, but unfortunately today I'm not going to discuss in detail on the business law, but what I'm going to share is on regarding my research on regulatory framework governing higher education in Malaysia. So this is basically I assume that this session is for students and also the academics from Universitas Terbuka, and also maybe other universities as well. So what I would like to share is basically is on sharing session. Okay, so as regards to Malaysian national education system, in Malaysia we have three categories of education institutions, and maybe this is also implemented in Indonesia. Okay, we have government educational institutions, government-aided educational institutions, and also private educational institutions. And according to Section 2 of Education Act 1966, the national education system in Malaysia comprises of course, from preschool education, then we have primary education, secondary education, post-secondary education, and also higher education. And our focus today will be on higher education system. Okay, as regards to the higher education system, or also maybe I just name it as HEI, and this is all well known from my literature search. It shows that higher education institutions plays very important role. Okay, they are the contributors to develop nation vision. They are the key institutions in the knowledge-based economy. They are also the producers of knowledge, because we know that at higher education institutions, the advanced knowledge are shared. We are doing all the research, okay, in order to promote the advanced knowledge. And also the higher education institutions are more than the provisions of public good, but they're also a strategic move towards greater growth and social solidarity. This shows that the higher education institutions will support the social solidarities. Okay? And in Malaysia, the Ministry of Higher Education, that is also known as Kementerian Pengajian Tinggi, the ministry has three departments that manage the institutions of higher learning institutions. Okay, we have Department of Higher Education, Department of Polytechnic Education, and also Department of Community College Education. Okay. This MOHE, or Ministry of Higher Education, are supported by several agencies, and the most important is Malaysian Qualification Agency. I'm sure Indonesia also have this type of agency, which function to supervise and coordinate quality assurance as well as accreditation of national higher education. And also, the other agency is National Higher Education Funding Board. Of course, when students would like to, when students are going to continue their education, they are also, they will get a funding, okay, from this National Higher Education Board. Okay, so as regards to the numbers of higher education institutions in Malaysia, which I believe Indonesia has a lot more than this. Okay, we have, this is from data in 2023 April. In Malaysia, we have the public higher education institutions, the public universities, we have 20, community colleges, 105, polytechnics, 36, and for private higher education institutions, universities, private universities, we have 57, private university colleges, 34, and private colleges, 309. And as regards to the system, the Malaysian educational system, actually, there is a clear dualism system where we have a public and private education system. Okay, and due to globalization, internationalization, and also demand for academic qualification in Malaysia, basically this is between 1995 to 1996. So Malaysian government introduced globalization and internalization of education. So in this year's 1995 to 1996, there are several policies, several statute was introduced, okay, where these policies are providing the legal framework for restructuring the private higher education system and also the public higher education system. When the government introduced this vision, this globalization and internalization, so there are very mushrooming of the introduction of the new private institutions, okay, in order to cater for the needs of Malaysian, in order to get academic qualification. So these are basically the legal framework or the statutes which are related to higher education institutions in Malaysia. Okay, we have Education Act 1996, Universities and Universities Colleges Act, National Council, all these Act, okay? Malaysian Qualification Agency Act, Private Higher Educational Institutions Act, and also the Companies Act. All right, so this is basically I have divided. Actually, I just want to share what are the acts which are related to higher education system in Malaysia. So I have divided this into the act or acts which are related to public higher education institutions and also private higher educational institutions. Okay, so for public higher education institutions, the law which are related to them are Education Act 1996, University and Universities Colleges Act 1971, National Council of Higher Education Act 1996, and also where for National Council and also MQA Act, they are both are applicable. These two are applicable for both public and private higher educations. Okay, and as for private higher educations, there is one act which are related to the institutions. There is Private Higher Education Act 1996, and as also for the Private Higher Education Companies Act 2016 are applicable to them. Okay, these are the statutes applicable to both public and private higher education. So the first one is Education Act 1996. This Education Act is actually governing to the important the purpose. Okay, the purpose of this Education Act is actually to introduce or to consider education as a tool to promote unity, and secondly, to produce a skilled workforce for economic growth and nation building. Okay, so these two are the most important aim or purpose, objective of this act. Okay, and the national education system is provided under sections 15 to section 19 of the act, which provides for national education system, the categories of educational institutions, and also the national language requirements as the medium of instructions, common curriculum, and also standard examination in the national education system. So when the government introduced Education Act, actually in 1957, and then later amended in 1995, and the name is or enforced in 1996. It is the objective of the government to uniform the societies in Malaysia through the concept of when you want to give education services to the society, you have to use Malay language or national language as the medium. Okay, and then they should also share common curriculum and also standard examinations. Means that they have the concept of uniformity. Okay, and then the establishment, according to section 71, the establishment of the higher education institutions is prohibited unless it is accordance with the relevant the law, and any person who contravenes this section shall be guilty of an offence. So under the Education Act 1996, it is stated that when government, when there is any person, when there is any company would like to introduce or would like to establish higher education, then they should follow certain regulations, rules and regulations. Okay. The second act related to higher education institutions is the National Council on Higher Education Act 1996. This act provides for the establishment of the council. Okay, the council, the objective of the council is to provide direction and also to oversee the development of both public and private higher education institutions in Malaysia. And then through this act, by introduction of this act, it transforms the government's role in higher education from regulatory to a supervisory function, which means that before the introduction of this act, the government actually playing, they just give the regulations and they are considered as regulatory body. But after the introduction of the council, this council, National Council on Higher Education, they are playing more of supervisory. They give direction and also supervise. Okay. The higher education institutions. And for private higher education institutions, the council role are for coordinating the development of higher education and also determining students' enrollment policies and guidelines, which means that the policies and guidelines in private higher educations are supervised, regulated by this council, discussed by this council and supervised. This council will supervise the private higher education. And the next act is Malaysian Qualification Agency Act 2007. Okay, if you notice, the other act is basically in 1995, 1996, but this act is in 2007 because the establishment of this Malaysian Qualification Agency merge between the National Accreditation Board and also Quality Assurance Division of Ministry of Higher Education. Okay, before this, as regards to the accreditation, quality assurance, it is under LAN or National Accreditation Board, Lembaga Akreditasi Negara, and also the Quality Assurance Division. After the introduction of this act, the Malaysian Qualification Agency was introduced. Okay, and the main objective of the MQA is to implement the Malaysian Qualification Framework, accredit higher educational programs and qualifications, supervise and regulate quality and standard of higher education providers, to establish and maintain Malaysian Qualification Register, and also to provide for any related matters, okay, as regards to qualification, MQF, and also MQR. And then Section 4 of this Act, MQA Act, provides that MQA is a body corporate and also have perpetual succession and a common seat, which means that I'm sure you know what is the meaning of body corporate and also perpetual succession. Okay, it means that they are the body which can sue and also being sued using their own name. Okay. Okay, now the statute applicable to public higher education only. So this is the act which the public higher education only applicable apply this act. Okay, the first one is University and Universities Colleges Act 1971. Of course, this is in 1971 because this act is actually provides regulations for the private higher education institutions. So the private higher education institutions was introduced in Malaysia way before 1996. Okay, as we know, in 1996, 1995, Malaysian government, as I mentioned just now, they are going for globalization, internationalization. At that particular time, only the private institutions are introduced, established. That is why this act is in 1971. Okay, so this act provides for the establishment of public universities and also universities colleges, the higher education institutions which are under purview of the government. Okay, and the act consists of 27 section of higher education and also administration of this act, which shall be in accordance with the national policies, strategies, and also guidelines on higher education formulated or determined by authority established under any written law, which means that the minister is the one who are responsible, Minister of Higher Education, okay, Ministry of Higher Education. Okay, and in 1995, this act was amended, where it gives the authority and flexibility to decide on issues relating to staff recruitment and also management, as regards to management and also academic matters, which means that in 1995, even the public universities are under government, they are controlled by government, but they are giving the autonomy, okay, as regards to staff recruitment, management, and also academic matters. So they may decide on their own with the supervision from the council. Okay, and then they are permitted to establish companies to engage in business operation. Okay, this is what I mentioned just now. In 1995, due to globalization, privatization, and globalization, even the public universities, university colleges, they are also permitted to establish a company where this company may offer academic programs. Okay, and then through this amendment also, these public higher education institutions may involve in franchising their programs to private colleges, especially during the economic downturn due to reduction of funding from 90% to 70%. and they were allowed to generate their own income. So means that even the public institutions, they are also having private wing. Okay, they are also offering academic programs. Okay? And the statutes related to private higher education only. Of course, we have Private Higher Educational Institutions Act 1996. This act this act was introduced in line with the government's aspiration to internalization and privatization, and it provides provision for establishing, registration, management, and also supervision of private higher education institutions. And this act also controls the quality of education provided by private higher education institutions and for matters connected to them. Through this act, together with the Malaysian Qualification Agency Act I mentioned just now, the quality of educations are controlled by the government. Okay, so Part 3 of the Act provides, which consists of Section 6 until Section 20, provides for the establishment of private higher education institutions, how the higher education institutions can be established. And the two important roles of this act is for the establishment and managing the private higher education institutions, and also to ensure the quality of the programs offered by the higher education institutions. And I give here, this is the flow chart provided under the Act, Private Higher Education Act, for the establishment of higher education, private higher education. So the first step, according to Section 2, there must be a company. Okay, if you remember just now under the Act, stated that under the Education Act, it stated that the higher education can only be established by according to written law. So under this law, it is provided that there must be a company in order for an organization, either public or private, to establish private higher education institutions. They must be locally incorporated, and then they must apply to the Registrar General, and then the Registrar will, on the application having been duly made in accordance with Section 6 and 7, and after being provided with all the information, particulars, document, make recommendations to the minister. Okay, so the minister then will grant the approval, either with or without conditions, or refuse the application. So there are several requirements that must be provided in order for the minister to grant approval. And then the decision by the minister is final, stated under Section 10. Okay, so here, as regards to what I have mentioned just now, it must be a company incorporated in Malaysia. It cannot be the international company. No, the company must be incorporated in Malaysia under the Companies Act 2016. And according to Section 12 of the Private Higher Education Act, a company must be incorporated in order to manage private higher education in Malaysia. The company referred to by the Private Higher Education Institutions Act is a company incorporated in accordance with the Companies Act. And this Section 2 of the Companies Act provide that company means a company incorporated under this Act, which is the Companies Act, under any corresponding previous written law. And the company or the corporation is a legal entity for the purpose of doing business. So basically, if we go for the company must actually have in their MOA, MOA and AOA of the company. The purpose of the company must be to provide education. Okay, and then as we are in ODL, so I provide here the one of the actually we have this code of practice for program accreditation for ODL. So we have COPA ODL, which actually govern the program accreditation. Okay, the quality assurance for program accreditation. Okay, so under this COPA ODL, the ODL program is defined as a program where more than 60% of the courses offered in the program are conducted via open and distance learning. In order for a course to be considered as an ODL course, at least 80% of the student learning time must be delivered via open and distance mode. Okay, for the course must be 80%, the SLT must be 80%, and the program, in order for the program to be considered as ODL program, the courses must be 60% offered in ODL mode. Okay, and it serves as a guideline for higher education providers that offer programs via ODL for accreditation and also program audit purposes. And it contains clear specific indicators and benchmark standards that guide the institutions in development, delivery, assessment, as well as the monitoring and review of the ODL program. And there are basically 7 areas under COPA ODL, which consists of the first area is on the program development and delivery. Second, assessment of student learning. Area 3, student selection and support service. Area 4, academic staff. Area 5, educational resources. And also area 6, program management. And last one, program monitoring and review, area 7. So under this COPA ODL, all the areas, sorry, there is no area 7 there. Okay, all the 7 areas must be, the institutions must fulfill the requirements provided under this COPA ODL in order for them to get the accreditation for the program. Okay, so as a conclusion, for my presentation today, it can be seen that there is a clear policy and legal framework governing the Malaysian higher education system. However, of course, the law must always be amended, review. Okay, but there is a clear policy and legal framework. And the establishment of the private universities and also private institutions can only be initiated after invitation by the ministry. And also the approval to set up the private higher education also must be granted by Ministry of Higher Education. And the decision made by the minister is final. Okay, I think that's all for my sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma, for your presentation about higher education in Malaysia perspective, especially in ODL, open distance learning education, that maybe some of people don't understand about open education system. And you can explain well about how higher education, especially private higher education law system in Malaysia, how the Malaysian government govern this kind of higher education. Maybe we will discuss more about how the higher education, especially in private higher education, governed by a Malaysian investment system. Maybe there are many investors who invest in higher education in Malaysia, and maybe we can compare with Indonesia, as we know that nowadays we are in ASEAN unity law, and we have many private higher education from Europe, from Australia, which open their campus on the country. Okay, now we have gained valuable insight into the legal landscape of conducting business in the country. And now let us shift our focus to Indonesia. It is my pleasure to introduce to our second speaker. He is Mr. Angga Priyanca. How could I spell it, Pak Angga? Priyanca or Priyanka?
You pronounce it perfectly. It's okay.
Okay. It's like Indian name.
Yeah.
HHLLM from Faculty of Law Universitas Indonesia. Mr. Angga is a legal scholar with extensive expertise in business law. Okay, a committee can, yes. Mr. Angga complete his master degree in intellectual property law from the University of Edinburgh in United Kingdom, and get her bachelor degree in law with specialization in intellectual property right also, yeah, IPR from Universitas Indonesia. He is a full-time lecturer in Faculty of Law Universitas Indonesia, and he has professional experience as National Cyber Security Alliance with Crypto Agency and Microsoft. He also has many journals about business law and IPR law, and he also write 3 book chapter and many short article. So we don't have much time. Is Angga?
Yes.
You can start your presentation. Your time is 45 minutes. Please.
All right. Thank you very much, Ibu Nadia. Am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes,
Sorry.
of course.
So is my screen visible into all the participants? Yes. Is it visible?
It's visible.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here. My name is Angga Priyanca. Currently, I am a lecturer in the Faculty of Law, Universitas Indonesia. I'm basically teaching most likely the intellectual property law and also telematics. So I might have some insights that we can share the relations between business law and also intellectual property and telematics law. But I also teach in the commercial law team in the Faculty of Law, Universitas Indonesia. Hence, I am here substituting Bu Yetty, Prof. Yetty Komalasari Dewi, which currently today has been ill. She lost her voice. Hopefully, I would like to ask everyone here, participants, to pray for Bu Yetty's steady recovery. So maybe in the future opportunities, Prof. Yetty will come here and maybe share some of her knowledge in this forum. Okay, so I'm going to discuss about the commercial law in Indonesia in the context of time, past, present, future. Maybe some of you here have maybe keen eye saying that maybe the title of the webinar is actually business law, but I'm using the terminology of commercial law. So this might actually comes into a long story of history of Indonesian quote unquote commercial law, which is equivalent to business law. So a long time ago, in the scholarship perspective, Indonesian commercial law is built through a consortium of commercial law teachers or lecturers in Indonesia. If I'm not mistaken, it's in the 50s. So after the establishment of the consortiums between universities and commercial law lecturers, it emerged, if I'm not mistaken, 8 books that define what is actually Indonesian business law or commercial law. Each of the books describe or discuss a specific type of commercial activities, which or business activities, which later being transported or maybe transcribed into the education system, the Indonesian higher legal education system, as in Indonesian terms, hukum mengenai kegiatan ekonomi or law in regards to economic or commercial activities. And that is why we are using the terminologies of commercial rather than business, because when we talk about commercial law is actually governing a commercialization activities. It's a law on how to gain how to gain revenues and commercial from the activities. So this is actually the approach of Indonesian legal system approach, what we call business law, which is actually, we use it, it's better, it's more of suitable to be called as commercial law rather than business laws in the Indonesian sense, based on the UI school of thought. And this is actually being followed by several public universities. So this is the outline of today's presentations. We're going to talk about the introduction. Of course, we're going to talk about the legal frameworks and of commercial law. And maybe, I want to give everyone here a few backgrounds. I'm using Professor Yetty slides, PowerPoint, and if I'm not mistaken, this has been delivered in the National University of Singapore in 2020. So we're going to also tackle some issues about legal progress, reforms, and things, response to COVID-19, which hopefully in all of the countries of the participants here, it's already past. I don't know if other part of countries or maybe the world might still facing COVID-19, but I believe Indonesia is currently, maybe we can say that we almost passed that. So I hope this will give some insights to Indonesian commercial law in times of quote-unquote crisis. And then we're going to talk about the future of the commercial law, which addressing commercial development and contemporary issues in commercial law, which later in the last I will conclude it with the concluding remarks. So this is the legal frameworks of commercial law in Indonesia. So maybe I believe the majority of people attending in this forum is actually having a legal education background. So we might know that commercial law or business law is actually a subchapter of civil law, which is the law relationship between people, right? So of course, when we talk about Indonesia, we're going to back into the civil code, the Kitab Undang-Undang Hukum Perdata, or something that we adopted from the Netherlands, the Dutch, as Burgerlijk Wetboek. So this Burgerlijk Wetboek basically having the norms, the legal norms that regulates the relationship between people to people. It first entered into Indonesia in 1848 due to the concordance principles, where the colonies of the Dutch, the Netherlands, have to adopt the Netherlandish law, which is in this time is Indonesia part of the colony. The civil code consists of 4 books. First is about the subject. So the books define about what is actually a person, the legal capacity that owned by a person and such. And the second book is about property, on which of things that can be considered as a property can be owned, can be imbued with ownership or maybe possessions. And then we have obligation and evidence and status of limitations. And then we have the book 3 on obligations. And if I'm not mistaken, the book 4 is on the civil procedures. The book 4, if I'm not mistaken, is already revoked. It's already removed because it's becoming a part of the Indonesian civil procedural law. The applicabilities of this law of the Indonesian Civil Code is actually still applied. However, there are few adjustments that is conducted through the enactment of new laws. For example, when we talk about property, one of the property that we know is maybe land. but it's not. It's already ceased to be regulated by the Indonesian Civil Code due to the enactment of the Basic Agrarian Law. The slides here say it as agrarian law, but in Indonesian terms, it's actually Undang-Undang Pokok Agraria or Basic Agrarian Law and Secured Land Title Law. So all of the ownership about land is basically being regulated in that, even though it's actually a property. And then in the development, this civil activities has been developed into something that we know as the commercial code, or in Indonesia, it's Kitab Undang-Undang Hukum Dagang, which also we adopted from the Netherlands with the real terminologies Wetboek van Koophandel, WVK, Wetboek van Koophandel. It first entered into force also in 1848. Why? Because the civil code and the commercial code, in technical terms, must be read together, because it's complementary with each other. So some of the provisions in the commercial code will have basic principles in the civil code. So when we read about the commercial code, we need to have to read the civil code as well. In this sense, the commercial code provide derogation for commercial matters as opposed to the Indonesian civil codes. Previously, it consisted of 3 books. 2 books, and now currently it's becoming 2 books. So book number 1, it's a general provision on commerce. It's still valid, but the articles 2 to 5 of book 1, the definition of scope of business, has been revoked in 1938. So in Indonesian legal experience, there is a time where we don't have the definition the definition of business and the scope of business, but it's already being filled by several laws after that. And then in book 2, it's discussing about maritime law. It's still it's still valid, but some of the provision is being augmented by the law number 70s year 2008 on shipping or pengangkutan. And then in book 3, it has been replaced by the law number 37, 2004 on bankruptcy and suspension of debt payment and obligations. So this is basically the core of Indonesian commercial law, civil code and commercial code. But after that is being developed into various law, like maybe law on insurance and everything, law of insurance, maybe on cooperatives, koperasi, and maybe the overarching new laws which we called about the job creation or Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, which we will going to discuss it after this. So this is the introduction of what is actually inside the commercial code when we dissect it further. So first it's discussed about the definition of merchants, traders, and its activities, which in this sense, the subject or the object of the commercial law in Indonesia, which is the commercial activities. However, it's being revoked, as I've discussed before, by the Statsblad 267 in the 1938. And then it's discussed about bookkeeping, which later being updated by law on dokumen perusahaan or document or company documents. And then it's talk about the capital market, the intermediaries, maklar, or maybe business intermediaries in English terms that might everyone here in the English language understand, which consists of maklar or maybe a platform, and then a cashier, banking, or the payment system, which are now being amended by the law on capital market and banking law. And then it also talks about the commission agent, forwarding agent or transporter, which currently the law inside the Wetboek van Koophandel or the Indonesian Commercial Code still applied. However, it's being also augmented by several rules by the Ministry of Trade. And then it also talks about the wait a second, I remember the English terminologies. It's surat berharga in Indonesia, or negotiable instruments in the English terminologies, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, it's a piece of documents that can be used for transactions. It has values of monies. I believe everyone here is familiar with that concept, surat berharga, or negotiable instruments. And then the claims and reclamation of bankruptcy, which is being transported into new law, which is the bankruptcy law, and insurance. Insurance itself is actually being regulated by special laws, undang-undang, which is the insurance law. And then the rights and obligation and vassals. Basically, this is the activities, commercial activities on transporting stuff. So it's being moved into the pengangkutan, hukum pengangkutan, or shipping law. So this is actually laws that is applied when we talk about commercial law in Indonesia in a broad sense. There's a law on limited liability companies, which is amended by job creation law. There's law on capital market, company documents. And we also have a specific law on state-owned enterprise. Maybe in some jurisdictions, state-owned enterprise will be classified only by limited liability companies. But in Indonesia, we also have another concept of state-owned enterprise, which is it's actually a limited liability company, but at the same time, state of enterprise would have some privilege or maybe some kind of derogable rights that needs to be aligned with the national interest. So this is actually some stuff that we have. And then we also have the bankruptcy law and obligation law, which partially revoked by the new law, number 40 in 2014 on insurance. And also it affected by the MK decision in 2014. So in the past, Indonesia understand or knew several business entities. Prior to job creation law or Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, the Indonesian jurisdiction understand, maybe in the broad sense, we have partnership and we have legal entities. When we talk about partnership, it's going to be based on civil partnerships. So it is association of persons and it doesn't have any legal bodies. When we talk about the business entities, which is based on partnership, we have persekutuan firma or the firms, and then the komanditer vennootschap or persekutuan komanditer, or if I'm not mistaken, in the English sense, it's going to be LLC. It's basically a partnership that have the terms, if I'm not mistaken, sleeping partner or passive partner, that only a partner that only give money and they don't need to work and they have limited liabilities, and that is similar to shareholders in the limited liability companies, which some people in Indonesia argued that komanditer vennootschap (CV) or the limited or the LLC is the transition within partnership, which have holistic responsibility, becoming some kind like of the limited liability company that have limited liabilities. So when we talk about this, I believe, Okay, so I believe this is in the context of the job creation law. So job creation law is actually a law that is enacted, but previously it was combination of several bill of law, several drafts of law, which is the bill on partnership and the bill of commercial entities, and several another laws that is at the end of the day being combined into the overarching laws is called as the job creation law or the Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. So this is also what is changing due to the Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. Previously, we are obliged to have every limited liability company needs introduce independent directors, but after the listing rules amended, now they don't need independent director. The independent commissary board is the only one required. So this is the status of the job creation law. So in the 5th of October 2020, its passage as a law and entry into force in November 2nd, 2020. There's a petition for judicial review submission on the job creation law because, well, it's actually a quite polemic in Indonesia at that time when they enacted of the Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, the job creation law, because they say that Indonesian system is not suitable for maybe adopting the job creation law and such. There's lots of discussions with the scholars, but this is the actual enactment, the process of the enactment of the law. And then after that, the Constitutional Court decision on judicial reviews petition is out, and at the end of the day, it's still enacted in 2022, but if I'm not mistaken, the Constitutional Court can have the condition that the job creation law needs to be revised by the end of 2022. However, if not, if I'm following the case correctly, it's not yet amended, but it's being applied by another type of regulations in Indonesia called Perpu or peraturan pemerintah pengganti undang-undang. So, well, this is a long process, but in short, the job creation law is a positive law on Indonesia right now, and it's replaced 47 government regulation, 4 presidential regulation, to 219 regulation on ministries, agencies, and related government regulation number 5, 2021 on risk-based licensing, which have been so far enacted. So yeah, this is what is interesting. If I want to highlight about the job creation law, it introduced a single member limited liability company, which is when we talk about the doctrinal aspect of limited liability company, it needs to have more than 2 people or more than 1 entities within it. Because why? We cannot limit the liability when it's being tackled or being responsible by 2 people, right? So this is actually what is being criticized a lot by scholars in Indonesia, because now we have single member limited liability company. What for? And also the application of this is actually needs, if I'm not mistaken, the approval of some ministers in Indonesia, which also raised a question, then is the ministry who agrees to establish or maybe to that permitted people to establish single member limited liability company also liable for any of business conduct done or conducted by this single member limited liability company? This is actually what is interesting in the Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. So maybe if anyone here have some insights, I would really like to hear. And then it shifts towards registration regime, displacing the approval regime in Indonesia, and it's abolished the minimum capital requirement for LLC. And then in investment law, it replaced negative investment list with new investment list. And in state-owned enterprise, it introduced the central government rights to appoint SOEs to implement national research and innovation efforts to assist micro and small, medium enterprise. And in these things, central government will provide a special budget for financing the strategies and innovations. In terms of COVID, this is actually several rules and regulation that is adjusted to face the crisis. Maybe I read some interesting part. It allows issuers to public companies to buy back their shares based on the mechanism established by the OJK, the Financial Services Authority or the Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. And then it reduces pressures and maintains stability of capital market, provide relaxation to the industry players, and simplify process of licensing, registration, approvals, and information or report submission. Also, some adjustment made is extension for the adjustment of portfolio composition of mutual funds, the requirement for investment managers and investment funds agents conducting sales activities in the electronic system, because when COVID, lots of the activities is being migrated into electronic mediated environment, and then provision for investment managers to ask for relaxation to adjust securities portfolio if there is a decrease in rating of bond or suku. Indonesia have this what is it called? I believe Malaysia do the same. Some investment instruments called bond, and also suku. Suku, if I'm not mistaken, is the bond but being managed in the Sharia sense. So Indonesia have this kind of stuff too. And then provision on multiple class voting shares, lock-up period obligation, requires shares to be in scriptless form, placed in escrow account. Script form is in limited circumstances. And then OJK regulation exists to complement shares and classification in the LLC law. And they enacted to amend previous relaxation stimulus given to issuers and public companies before gradual policy normalization. Relaxation for holding GMS, relaxation for submission of reports, and relaxation for certain condition for the issues. I want to discuss about this further, but because that's not the slide, I stopped. So this is actually the place where I'm going to discuss about the business entities in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, business entities that we know is we know the perusahaan perseorangan, or basically in English is actually sole proprietorship. When we talk about the what is it called, the obligations and responsibilities going to be burdened to the person, because there is only one person that conducting the commercial activities. And when we talk about the commercial entities based on partnership, civil partnership, which in this sense, it's not a legal entity. Okay, this is only a partnership, association between people. We have three types of this. First, we know maatschap in the Netherlands language, or persekutuan perdata, which is actually a general partnership. Basically, it's when people agree to associate with each other to create a certain business or activities. When we talk about maatschap or any legal business entities that based on partnership, it's going to be based on contracts. So all of the things must be agreed in the contract, and if the contract is null and void or voidable, then the business shall be ceased. Or maybe if there is a death of one of the entities in the contract, then because it's based on contract, when people dies, contract in Indonesia is actually ceased, and that's also ceased the business activities itself. So first we have maatschap, which is only people that want to band together, agrees to conduct business activities. And also we have firma. Firma is partnership but under one name. What makes it different with the general partnership? In firma, in partnership, each partner have the ability to conduct legal action towards third party individually. So when we have partner A and partner B going to have a contract with C, it's not going to drag A into responsibilities because it's going to be independent. But when we say firma under one name, when one of the partner in a sense create a contract under the name of the firma, then all of the partner will be responsible to the legal relationship conducted with the third party. And we also have the development of firma. It's called Persekutuan Komanditer or Komanditer Vennootschap, which in this sense we have partners like in firma. However, we also have another new instrument called the passive partner or sekutu komandit, which only contributes money to the partnership. However, he or she is limited to only giving money and forbidden to run the management of the business. Why? This prohibition is actually comes with a certain privilege, which is the one who become a sekutu komandit, they will not be responsible for any legal action conducted to the third party. So in this sense, if there is loss between the business, then the sekutu komandit will only loss the amount of money being contributed to the persekutuan, and he or she will not be dragged to pay excess debt from the sekutu komanditer, the persekutuan komanditer. That's basically the partnership level of the business entities in Indonesia. And then we switch into what we call as perseroan terbatas. Perseroan terbatas or PT or limited liability company is based not on contract, but it's being established as a legal entities. So the entities have the ability to own property, to go into contract to third entities, to the third party, and also responsible to all of the acts. How to be responsible is by, business companies usually have a certain money and put it into the business. So how they're responsible is through their capital. And then what interesting in Indonesia is now with the job creation law, PT Perseorangan is actually also a badan hukum, legal entity, and this becoming a discussion among scholars. Can a single naturally person or the natural person can have another persona as a legal entity, and how are we going to discuss about the responsibility that's being discussed in lots of journals and discussion in the forms of commercial law in Indonesia. And also we talk about capital for the PT Perseorangan or the sole single member limited liability company. Yeah, that's how do we manage the capital within that kind of situations. And then we also have kooperasi or cooperative. This is actually one of the business entities that is preferable to some people in Indonesia, and some might argue that this is empowering the people economy or ekonomi kerakyatan. If we talk about if we read some articles from maybe Prof. Sri Edi Swasono, which keen of this kind of situations. So if we going to put it into a flow chart, this is actually the types of company in Indonesia which have the status of legal entity. First, we have ordinary company and state-owned enterprise, and we have the private limited liability company, and then public, which is listed in the bursa, in the stock market, which have the minimum of 300 shareholders and 3 billion issued capital. But also in this sense, we also have state-owned enterprise that have the classification of private and public, which have the similar requirements to do so. However, usually state-owned enterprise that have a relation of strategic needs into national strategic things, we'll have something that we know as golden shares. So maybe some of the proxies of the state have this kind of shares within the general meeting of shareholder, and it can, in a sense, appointed a director. So have what is it called? The power to, in a sense, I forgot the right terminologies in English, but it have the power to, in a sense, drive how the decision making in the general meeting of shareholder. This is basically the board structure and composition in the limited liability company in Indonesia. First, we have the general meeting of shareholders. This is the place where the article of association is being amended, and the appointment of directors and commissary board. And then we have the board of director, who is conducted the everyday business of the legal of the limited liability company. And we have the board of commissary board that controls the everyday action conducted by the board of directors. So we have two tiers of board structure. First, we have board of directors, which is consists of directors, and then the commissary board, which is commissaries and independent commissaries. And in terms of several business entities that obliged to comply with the Sharia norms, they also have the board of Sharia supervisory. So all the business, maybe when when a certain companies created a halal food, or maybe or the Sharia banking sector, they need to operate and comply to the Sharia norms. And that is why some of the business entities in Indonesia in that context have the board of Sharia supervisory, so it still comply with the Sharia norms. So this is the future addressing commercial development. We have the special purpose acquisition company and the variable capital companies. The VCC is currently is a hot topic in Singapore because it's quite revolutionary in Singapore, because it is said that it have major impact to the Singapore wealth revenue restructuring and such. So people in Indonesia is taken interest in this kind of restructurization of wealth and try to gain insights from these two concepts respectively. And for the future development of the company law in the world and Indonesia, I want to highlight 4 topics. First is corporate social responsibilities. I mean, of course, companies will try to gain lots of money by operating, but they also, there is a discussion that this company needs to also give back to the place they extracted values and revenues from. So this becoming important. And also we have the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and also which in that sense, it also consists of environmental, social, and governance. This is also a hot topic in the future business law, how companies also plays part in sustainable development, in keeping the environment safe, socially responsible, and having a good governance. And also business and human rights. We also know some issues that companies, yes, indeed, companies have the goals and objectives to gain money. However, sometimes it's being conducted through measures that is derogatory to human rights, or maybe neglecting human rights. This is becoming several issues in several countries. So in the future discussion, there might have a discussion of company law. Company law needs to pay attention to how they conduct business, on whether they conduct business which in this sense respecting human rights of the workers and also the environment around it. And then the shareholder stewardship. This is also an issue that often being discussed in Indonesia right now. So in the concluding remarks, I want to conclude that while the government orientation to improve ease of doing business by streamlining regulatory hurdles and simplifying regulation, for example, the job creation law is commendable. However, its method of doing so has been proven deficient. And then Indonesia continues to enact newer legislation to replace outdated provision from the both civil and commercial code designated to facilitate commercial developments and related contemporary issues on enterprise. And third, further legal development are needed to address fragmented and archaic provision on commercial law. For example, the laws on partnership and negotiable instrument, or surat berharga in Indonesia. And then the Indonesian commercial law development has long been influenced by common law jurisdiction through transplantation adjusted with domestic situations. Some might have a critique that Indonesia has part ways with the Netherlands because we are more adopting into common law jurisdiction rather than back into the roots of the civil law from the Dutch. So this is also some kind of issues that been discussed in the field of commercial law in Indonesia. I believe this is the end of my presentation. Thank you, Ibu Nadia.
Thank you very much, Pak Angga, for your comprehensive presentation about Indonesian commercial law or Indonesian business law. From positivism perspective until how it could change. As we know that nowadays we have Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja or job creation law that change all of the regulatory issue in business law, and how the future issue of business law like corporate social responsibilities and how the environmental issue, human rights and shareholders. Moving into the next session is the Q&A session. Please welcome the participant. If you want to ask your question, you can use the raise hand feature or by typing them in the chat, and I will facilitate the discussion and ensure that both of speakers have an opportunity to respond to the question. Please remember to keep your question and please commit maybe to show the question if only there are question from chat feature. Okay. Maybe the participant, if you have a question, you can raise hand. Okay, we have two participants right now. Maybe I will give the opportunity to the female first. Bu Nuni Nurhayati. Okay, Bu Nuni, please join us. You can open your mic directly.
Okay, thank you. In bahasa tidak.
I'm sorry, Bu Nuni. We cannot hear your voice clearly.
Halo.
Yeah, halo. You can.
Okay. In bahasa Bu Nadia.
Okay, it's okay.
Baik. Pertanyaannya di Indonesia itu banyak berubah terkait dengan perizinan berusaha, di mana di Indonesia memakai perizinan berusaha berbasis resiko. Bagaimana dengan di Malaysia gitu ya? Kalau di Indonesia itu ada undang-undang cipta kerja, kemudian ada peraturan pemerintah terkait dengan perizinan berusaha berbasis resiko. apakah di Malaysia juga ada regulasi terkait dengan perizinan berusaha berbasis resiko? Jika ada, mungkin bisa di-sharingkan ke kita terkait dengan peraturan perundang-undangan yang terkait di Malaysia terkait dengan perizinan berusaha berbasis resiko yang di Indonesia ini baru saja diterapkan. Seperti itu, Bu Nadia.
Okay, thank you. So your question is for Bu Fatma, Dr. Fatma. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Fatma. I will. Yes. I will translate it. Okay. I cannot hear. Dr. Fatma still.
Okay. Please translate the term because
Okay.
I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. So you will maybe we will answer directly and so we can directly answer this question. So Bu Nuni asked about how about the risk-based business licensing in Malaysia, because in Indonesia we have risk-based business licensing in the positivism regulatory, and how it the governance of Malaysia law system govern about risk-based business licensing, please.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I'm so sorry, this is not, I am not preparing to answer this, but actually, I'm not quite familiar with risk-based licensing. I'm sure this is about, but I'm not so sure whether it is about the okay, I'm not very familiar with this. Is it about gig workers or not?
What?
Is it something related to? Because I'm not familiar with risk-based licensing.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe I can just check, but I cannot answer it right now.
Okay.
I don't think it is discussed here in Malaysia regarding this. It is not established yet because I'm not familiar with this term. Through my business law subject, commercial law subject company also, I'm not familiar with this term. So I'm assuming that this is new to us also.
Okay, thank you. It's okay. Okay. Right now, maybe we can to turn to the other participant. Bapak or Ibu Alfia Tahiyat and Pak Wahyu, Sri Wahyu Krida Sakti, to maybe the first Bapak or Ibu Alfa Tahiyat can open the mic and giving answer. Okay, please welcome Ibu Alfia Tahiyat.
Okay, before that, thank you, Ms. Nadia, for the chance for me to ask the question. Before that, I'd like to ask some question from Mr. Angga Priyansa presentation before. Of all of the points related to the temporary issues within on the company, is there anything else that we should be aware from what was those mentioned before? And what are the little by little steps that we can do in changing the existing issues so they won't happen again in the future? That's all question from me. Thank you so much for the chance.
Okay, may I answer it directly, Ibu Nadia?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, but can I be sure that in what context that you asked? I mean, you said what needs to be put into account, right? Or needs to be maybe have that needs to be observed, but in what context? If
From the point that you are talk about issues, temporary issues on the company that you are mentioned before, is there anything else that we should be aware other than points that you mentioned before? So we can do a little steps to change it in the future so it won't happen again.
Okay, so because I also teach in the telematics law, what we need to be aware maybe the technical aspects. I mean, if we talk about the doctrinal aspect, I believe the commercial is well established already. However, there is a few technical aspect and adjustment that actually changing. For example, in COVID, when we talk about the general meeting of shareholders, usually it's going to have a voting system, right? And it's, I mean, intuitively it's going to be done directly, but when in COVID we cannot meet, there's no assembly, there's no meeting, so sometimes maybe the agreements or the vote needs to be given in maybe electronic forms and other forms and such. In this sense, maybe the company law also needs to be aware that there's a new technical terms, trustable ones that we can use in conducting business. For example, digital signatures. I mean, long ago, people are not trusting the digital signatures much, but we have now established a very, if I'm not if I want to argue, a quite solid digital signature infrastructure in the ITE law, and also in the following regulation after that, the government regulation number 71 2019, on which of the digital signatures is trustable and is not, and which one that is adequate to be used in the company setting and such. I think that is the things that we need to be aware. For example, in the future, maybe when we talk about directors will have responsibilities on the commercial entities, right? The decisions, but it's limited. Now, in the future, if we are augmented, the director decision making is augmented by artificial intelligence, for example, we need to be aware on how the responsibilities might be. And also, we need to be aware on the current discussion on the social aspect of company law. I mean, we already discussed about the environment and also the corporate social responsibilities, because if there's a practice in Indonesia, maybe the CSR budget is being put into a certain foundation or yayasan, but it's actually a proxy of the company. So company A created a yayasan A, and they put the CSR money into that company, and that's becoming problematic. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? So I think there's lots of dimension that we need to be aware in terms of, technologies, and also maybe some kind of mechanisms in for companies to comply in the sociable aspect of the company itself. So that's will be my answer to the question, Miss Olivia.
I hope the answer from Pak Angga answer your question, Bu Alvia.
It already answered my question. Thank you so much, Mr. Angga.
Okay, thank you. Next to Pak Sri Wahyu, please open your mic.
Yeah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Rahayu. Thank you, moderator, for giving me such opportunities. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name Wahyu, as the moderator said. My name, complete name used to be female name, is male. All right, and I work for UT, and to be more specific, at the law study programs, starting from the beginning of UT's establishment. So it's been almost 40 years, and coming little. I'm the oldest one in this discussion. All right. I think my question would be goes to Dr. Fatma and Dr. Angga. The first, for Dr. Fatma, initially, I thought you would like to address the substantive materials about this commercial law, but apparently you address about the higher education administration. And for me, it really works because right now, currently, I'm in charge as a chief or team leader of the development of Master of Law. So I'd like to ask about anything to do with this. How in Malaysia, you prepare the institutions, to deal with the internationalization, internationalizations to do with this accreditation is very important, like we have it in Indonesia. I'd like to know about this, my first question. And the second question is to do this, what is the critical trend of legal law competent needs in Malaysia as to where right now we are entering the society 5.0 right now. So so we have to prepare it. And the last question to Fatma to do with the whether in Malaysia you have what I call it a field of legal concentrations to do with this comparative law. If there is any, please let me know. And to Mr. Angga, I'd like to address my question first. As my deans have already touched it to do with this, in this work, we know that there are two big platforms that we learn a lot, or what so-called question is that how a comparative study for future benefits that we can take it from here, because globalization is really borderless. And then also we never heard also the other platforms such as what used in I believe in Japan and China is very different in using this kind of platform. And second question to Mr. Angga to do with this, what is the critical system of law to do with this comparative law that we are actually supposed to learn, because there are a lot of systems, in this world, especially for today's civilization, as you mentioned it, to do with this cyber law or telematic, law. Or we can take the benefit. Supposed to know it about this. And then the last question to Mr. Angga is to do with this: what kind of approach, and methods used for this comparative study? Thank you. Thank you, Bu Nadia. That's my question. I hope that's my question. It's not a lot. I don't mean to dominate this question. You can skip it if you think that really time consuming. Thank you.
Could you please respond first, because I cannot get the points. There is incoming call to my office. Okay, Mr. Angga, could you please answer first?
Okay. So to be honest, the first question I don't really get it, because I believe there is technical problems in my computer. But for the second and third question, may I ask again? It's about the what actually do we learn about comparing laws between nations, if I'm not mistaken. And then the third one, how do we approach it? Is it Pak Sri Wahyu? Yeah. So what is the first question? Because there's
actually what benefit we can take it, knowing that we learn a lot about there are two different platforms in our society.
Sorry,
the benefit of computer.
It's
as we know it
putus,
right now. We learn. Okay.
Can you type it? Yeah, can you type it, because it's putus-putus, Pak?
Okay, it's gonna take time then, sir. If I
only
I better just repeat it again.
Okay.
No, my question is only what can be from we are having two big different platforms, commercial law and civil law, regarding this comparative. Yeah, that is my questions. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we have a commercial and civil law, two platform or two field of studies. If in my opinion, I think it's not really two platforms. It's I believe because the civil law having the scope that is very overarching, it's very big. This field of study emerged as a new concept called commercial. So when we talk about civil law, it's discussing about not only relationship between people in the business context, right? We're talking about waris and inheritance. We talk about marriage. We talk also about things that is not commercial, and that's why, because it's too overarching, the specific scope of law that is hubungan between people, the relationship between people, but it's in the commercial settings. So in this sense, emerge new terminologies within the scope of the civil law called the commercial law. So if it's considered as two platform, I believe it's more like an emergence of new concept within a concept itself. So when we draw the Venn diagram, we have a big circle called the civil law, and we have a smaller circle inside it called the commercial law. If this, am I understanding your question correctly, Pak Wahyu?
Yeah, in a kind of my principal question is really to do how we can take benefit, because there are two different platforms in this legal practices, common law and civil law. And then when we take a comparative law, we have to learn about this, and then how we take benefit from it, because the system is different, and then all of the issues also is different, and what kind of legal objects we are supposed to really focus on. Yeah.
Okay. I heard civil and commercial. It's common law and civil law. Okay, sorry, I misheard it. So this is based on my experience studying in both countries with common law and civil law jurisdiction. So common law, if I would like to have my opinion, is in a sense more innovative. I mean, common law have this precedence that bounds each judge, and precedence comes from decision from the judge. So it's going to be based on recent cases, important cases, that's going to bound the other judges to do the same. And when it's being repeated all and over again, usually this precedence will be formalized as a law. And that's actually what happened in the European Union and the British countries. On the other hand, civil law, it's based on the statutes, right? So in terms of certain, not really certainties, but stability and scope, I think civil law usually have or should have better formulation of the legal norms, because it needs to be transcendent. It needs to be applied in a long time without being bound by the precedent. So when we talk about what we can get from comparative perspective in the civil and common law, in this sense, I believe when we talk about recent cases or maybe innovation and such, maybe we can learn much from the common law perspective, because usually it's going to face a newer cases and such. But when we talk about civil law, we are going to talk about the formulation of norms and the legal research and how to have extensive interpretation on laws is actually quite important in the civil law.
All right.
And also, but in this sense, when we learn it from the both perspective, we also have our own perspective as well, right? So in this sense, maybe we can learn from each other's system to, okay, in the civil law, this is not really a thing, but in the common law, it's already developed, and maybe we can adopt with also adjustment, because the both platforms or perspective is different for a reason.
Okay.
And also we need to put into account the legal masyarakat hukum, the legal society that applies that. So maybe we are ambitious enough to, okay, this is very good in the civil law and in the common law, we need to apply it in the civil law. But sometimes the masyarakat hukum, the legal society, is not really ready to accept such concepts. So we need also to put into account the difference in perspective, how to think, and how the milieu or the values of each societies that have different mindset in the legal system. I believe that my answer, Pak.
Great, thank you. Yes, you got it. I got it too. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Nadia, may I add to as regards to civil law and also common law, because Malaysian apply common law system. Okay, and as for Malaysia, we have three. Maybe the Dean just now also mentioned about this. Okay, in Malaysia we have the sources of law is written law, unwritten law, and also Sharia law, Islamic law. So under the unwritten law, we have precedent, like Mr. Angga mentioned just now. We have precedent, judicial precedent, custom, and also English law. So that will be our source of unwritten law. And of course, for written law, we have the Federal Constitution or the Act. So by these three sources of law, I think it will become like Malaysia is not only we refer to English law. We have our own law as well. There is like Mr. Angga mentioned just now, it is a very good for us to take home that what is good in written, in common law or civil law if you do comparative. The one that is good for our development to protect our society is the best. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Fatma. Moderator, if I really may I just repeat it just very quite concise. Yeah. Yes. My first question to Dr. Fatma, it is to do with the internationalizations, ma'am. I believe that in your administrations, every education institutions had to really promote their effort to get internationalization through accreditation, international accreditation. So how these things go when you prepare these internationalizations? That's my question. And my second question is to do with this: is there any critical trends in legal competence needs over there? Because I believe the trends of our legal system right now in a society 5.0 is right now happening a change. Is there any studies about this trends of legal competence needs there? And then how it is to do with the comparative legal concentrations? Is there any study program, especially higher study master law level, that concentrate in comparative law? I hope that I really clear my three questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your question. Okay, as regards to the legal studies, comparative legal studies at OUM, we do not have law programs.
Okay.
But in Malaysia, we have International Islamic University.
Okay.
IUM, they have at master level, they have the comparative study, and also at PhD level. So you can do a comparative study, but not in OUM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As regards to internationalization of Malaysian program, is that your question?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Right.
So basically, the higher education institutions in Malaysia, they are offering the program, offshore program. We have the program, local program, but you offer outside.
Okay.
Like the well-known university, or in the case of OUM, we also have partners. Okay, like in UTech, we have in Zambia, Sri Lanka. So we have partners who offer our programs. And for private, for public higher education university, public universities, they are also having offshore program. Like University Science Malaysia, they have program overseas.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fatma.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope the participant, the question for participant is answered fully by Dr. Fatma and Pak Angga. And I get information from the committee that, okay, there the third or the fourth question or from Pak Aditya Dani.
Okay, thank you, Bu Nadia.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. My question is for Dr. Fatma. So I'm working in the private sector in Indonesia as a legal. So is it as far as for establishment of a new company in Indonesia, there is several requirement. For example, the name of the new company shall be written in Latin, something like that, and it's not against social or norm, something like that. And also, there is also these requirements that the establishment of a new company, namely limited liability company, is consists of 3 words. So, example, PT, Alpha, Beta, Charlie. So it's supposed to be 3 words, something like that. So is in Malaysia also for the establishment of a new company also have this such requirements, something like that. And the second question, pasti for Mr. Angga. Mr. Angga, is it generally accepted, like during COVID, it is generally applicable that for the use of e-signature, something like that, between company, between for a business, daily business, something like that. So it's for a contract or a purchase order, something like that. It's used not a wet signature, but e-signature, something like that. So it is in practice, mostly we use e-signature without third-party verification. For example, like Privy or DocuSign, something like that. Is it in front of the law? Is it valid or legally binding, something like that, if we use e-signature without any third-party verification, something like that? I think that's it for my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. So the first question is for Dr. Fatma. Is clear, Dr. Fatma?
All right.
The question.
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Aditya. Okay, I think it is similar concept in Malaysia and also Indonesia, just that we don't have limited liability company. We only have so proprietorship, partnership, and also limited liability partnership, and also company. So we only have 4. So as regards to the registration of company, yes, there is several requirements that the company have to fulfill. One of it is the name of the company. Of course, the company should not have any names which is contrary to the public policy. And then it cannot use the name of our rulers. There are several requirements. Of course, as regards to name, it's not only limited to three words only, but there are certain regulations that they must follow. If let's say the name is not approved, then the applicant should should propose the new name. Okay, is that answer your question? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the second question for Pak Angga about e-sign.
Okay, thank you, Bu Nadia and Pak Adit. So basically, yeah, it's true. It's questionable to use the electronic signatures that only scan the signature of people and being put paste into certain electronic documents, right? However, so if we're going to took this into the law, basically using the questionable signatures, which is the maybe the crop version of your signatures into electronic document, is based on the ITE law, the Undang-Undang ITE, is acceptable by the law. Yeah, so it's basically acceptable. However, it is it is acceptable, but the security of the electronic signatures might be questionable, right? In this sense, if we look deeper into the government regulation number 71, 2019, there is a further elaboration and further things about digital signatures that being regulated. So basically, when you are only using the crop version of the e-signatures into maybe surat pernyataan or maybe things that is not really important, that don't really need certain securities, then it's okay. Like administrative document that doesn't have any impact to financial or maybe stuff, then it's okay and acceptable by the law. However, for business settings, there are some requirements. So we have the concept of electronic signatures, which is signatures that being cropped and paste into an electronic document, and also the digital signatures. It's under the one umbrella. Digital signatures, on the other hand, is like what you have said before. It's being regulated or maybe verified by third-party certification bodies like Privy in the private sense, or Doku ya, in the private sense, but also we have in the public sense the BSRE, Badan Sertifikasi Balai Sertifikasi Elektronik by the Badan Siber and Sandi Negara, National Crypto and Cyber Agency, and if I'm not mistaken, BRIN, the Badan Riset Inovasi Nasional juga punya, also have this type of electronic signature certification bodies. In this sense, for business contracts, if I'm not mistaken, it's being stipulated in the government regulation number 71, they need to use the verified version of the electronic signatures, because it going to be related to the security. I mean, when we talk about business need to be safe. So the regulations in the government regulation number 71 2019, if I'm not mistaken, oblige certain condition on the electronic signatures being used. And if I'm not mistaken, it's mengarah kepada tanda tangan digital, which is the electronic version, the electronic certified signature. So theoretically, we have two types: the uncertified one and the certified one. The uncertified one is the one that is cropped, and the certified one is using the cryptography and the third verificator. So in this sense, for business, several business conduct, the law stipulated that we need to use the certified version of e-signatures. But in details, maybe we need to read further into the PP 71 again. But that's actually the broad sense of the answer, Pak Adip.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Angga.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fatma and Pak Angga, for your answer. The committee, is there any question? Okay, please, you can show. Okay, there are two questions. The first is from Bu Ira Fatmawati from UT Bandung. She asks about how does the private higher education institution governance in Malaysia, do they comply with the corporation law? This question is for Dr. Fatma. And okay, the second question from Lisa for Pak Angga. What is the view of commercial law when there are many new policies or policies related to policies made by financial service authority, especially for large companies or bankers, and companies in finance or leasing. Maybe the first question, the committee can, yes. Okay, Bu Fatma or Dr. Fatma, you can answer the question for Bu Ira.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Okay, as I've mentioned just now, we have one dedicated act for the private institutions. Okay, the Private Higher Educational Institutions Act 1996. This act provides all the how an institution have to be managed. All the governance, which means that from the board of directors, the board of governors, then the company, and then in the higher education itself, they have to be governed as provided by the public, by the PHEI, Private Higher Educational Institutions Act. So this act really provide how the university or how the colleges, private colleges should be governed. So of course, this is in line with the corporation law. That's my answer. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Fatma, and the second question is for Pak Angga.
Okay. Okay. For this question, I believe I'm going to answer it in the basic logical frameworks of the commercial law. So commercial law basically a law about commercial activities, which in the academic perspective of Indonesian commercial law, it's talking about the business entities and several instruments that conduct business. In terms of OJK policies related to commercials or especially companies or bankers, within the book, within several books in commercial law in Indonesia, commercial law, if I would like to have opinion on, usually stops in the business business entities and the instruments, and after that this business entity will have a specialized sector like banking, insurance, transportation, and such. So I think it is very likely for OJK or maybe BI, Central Bank of Indonesia, to create lots of additional policies for the commercial activities in that specific sector. And if we're going to talk of it in the academic settings, yes, it is true, and it should be that OJK and BI use or regulate lots of things in the banking sector or financial sector, because that needs to be regulated. And in the academic settings, that's not really in the scope of commercial law anymore, but it's more into banking law or maybe financial technology law and such. So when we talk about the commercial law, we are usually stops in the business entities, the relationship between the parties in business entities, and how are we going to pay things and such. However, when we talk about the sector, the specific sector, it is likely for it to be regulated in a specific matters, which in academic setting, it's going to be not in the field of the company law anymore or commercial law anymore, but it's going to be a more specific subject like a banking law, insurance, shipping, and such. So I believe when we view it, there's no actually problems, and I believe it's very logical things to do. Gitu, maybe Bu Nadia.
Thank you for your explanation about how the OJK rules change the business law in Indonesia. Okay, is there any question? I think there is no question again, and the time is 11, and this is Friday. So this is Friday praying for a Muslim. both in Malaysia and Indonesia, I think. So thank you very much, Dr. Fatma and Pak Angga, for your really informative explanation about business law in Indonesia and Malaysia, respectively. Your expertise and insight have shed light on the importance of strong legal framework to promote economic growth and protect the interests of both domestic and foreign business. As we know that both Indonesia and Malaysia is a member of Asia community, and we should have a strong partnership to gain business better and to protect our maybe I don't know UMKM. What should I use UMKM in Malaysian? Small business, I think, because they are the most stakeholder who impact by globalization and big business company, I think. I would like to express my gratitude to our speakers and to all the participants who have joined us today. Remember to stay engaged in our upcoming session as we continue to explore the fascinating world of comparative law. I'm sorry if I have a mistake in moderate this session. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And I will return the forum to our host, Miss Rina. Please, Miss Rina.
Thank you, Mrs. Nadia Nurani Isfarin, LLM, for bringing us a very productive session today. And also thank you to Associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma binti Tuan Sulaiman and Mr. Angga Priyanka SHLLM for your stimulating and informative discussion on business law in Indonesia and Malaysia. We have heard from our expert speakers about their perspective and insight on various aspects of business law in Indonesia and Malaysia. I'm sure we all gain a lot of valuable knowledge and understanding from this webinar. Once again, let's give a big applause to our great speakers and our moderator for their excellent contribution. Okay, next agenda, we will deliver an awards to all of our great speakers virtually. First awards delivered to our first speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma binti Tuan Sulaiman from Open University of Malaysia. Thank you, Professor Dr. Tuan Fatma binti Tuan Sulaiman, for your valuable insight and expertise that you have shared with us today. Next, we will deliver the awards to our second speaker, Mr. Angga Priyanka SHLLM from University of Indonesia. Thank you, Mr. Angga Priyanka SHLLM, for your valuable insight and expertise that you have shared with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to read some announcement for the participants. To all participants who attend this webinar, please fill the feedback link which delivered on Zoom room chat to get an electronic certificate. And for the active participants who have asked questions, the committee will give us souvenirs and the committee will contact the active participants through the feedback link you have sent. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are in closing session. After this, before we are closing, we will be a group photo session which will be guided by the committee. To all the participants, please on your camera. To the photo sessions will be start in 30 seconds. Okay, all ready? And the committee is ready? Okay, we will take a picture in 3, 2, 1. Okay, once more. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Virtual Comparative Law Public Lecture Series with our topic, Business Law in Indonesia and Malaysia, we've come to the end of this enlightening and informative webinar. I hope you all have enjoyed and benefit from the presentation and discussion of speakers. And I would like to thank them once again for their valuable contribution for making this webinar a success. And I would also like to thank you for the sponsor, organizer, volunteers, media partners, and all of you for your participants and support. As we conclude this webinar, I would like to leave you with a quote by Albert Einstein. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. I hope this webinar has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more about the topics we have covered today. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors and hope to see you again in our next webinar. Thank you and have a great day. I'm Rina Elsa Rizkiana signing off. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Angga.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Pak Angga.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma,
And thank
for
you,
your times
Mr.
and your
Angga.
sharings.
All right. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mas Angga. Please pass my sincerest regard to Prof. Yetty. Hope she will be